Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys had a great Sunday with your families. I know Jake Diebler did, the new head coach at Ohio State. It's been trending that way recently. There was talk about Thad Matta, Dusty May, Sean Miller. Landed on Jake Diebler. I think that the team rallying around him and doing some great work down the stretch really obviously helped him. And the money guys got behind him, which is really important, obviously, when you're in the NIL world. So really excited to see what he can do with a full season and potentially some staff changes, which we're going to analyze a little bit. And spring football is back starting today, tomorrow. The guys are back reporting. They'll be working out tomorrow. They have their first practice back on Tuesday. Time to get after it. Time for guys to win spots. So we're going to kind of break down what went on over spring break and what is going to be going on this week, because now the pads are going on and it's go time. There's no more playing around, and I'm really excited to talk about that. As always, appreciate you guys, as always, for kicking with us on your Sunday. I hope you guys had a great weekend, very prosperous weekend. March Madness is this week, so put in the comments, give me your plans. What do you guys want for March Madness? Do you take Thursday, Friday off? Do you kick it? I know it's the least productive 2 days, I think, in the entire country. I see those studies, and it's always hilarious. But I'd love to hear your plans for March Madness. Again, I appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. So having some dinner tonight. I met Alpha Buckeye from Buckeye Scoop fame. He's been on the message boards for 20 years. It's great to meet some of the message boarders in person. I also met Steve Shipball from Carrollton, was with his family, driving through Indianapolis from a volleyball tournament, came over and said hello. His wife did not want him to say hello and bug me, but if you guys ever see me anywhere and I'm just sitting there, on my iPad, usually working, I was having a steak and some asparagus, always come over and say hi, because I always love meeting you guys and talking to you guys, and it happens a lot now. So I really appreciate you guys. I always love hearing feedback on the show and the stuff that you guys, how much you guys usually enjoyed if you guys are coming over. So I really appreciate that. So never hesitate if you guys see me out and about anywhere, because it is really cool, and we are a real community, and really like meeting you guys. So really appreciate you, Steve, for coming over, and also shout out where you guys are watching from. North Carolina. I'm going to shout out North Carolina because my North Carolina Buckeyes were bad. I have never said North Carolina on the show, so shout out North Carolina, South Carolina, the whole Sun Belt, I guess I could do to get a big swath of it. Shout out who you guys are watching with. I love seeing who you're watching with your family. And in the comments, I also want to hear your thoughts on the Jake Diebler hire. I like it. I think it's great. I think Ross Bjork is a breath of fresh air from Gene. Gene Smith was crying about firing Chris Holtman. And, you saw the dramatic change in leadership that led to this team almost making the tournament, almost making it to the Big Ten Championship. So I'm excited for the guy. I think he'll do a good job. Nevada, you dropped a pretty substantial nugget. You've got some really good inside information on what went on with the hiring, pivoting from there was initial thought of Thad Matta, reuniting with Jeff Bowles, who's the head coach at Ohio University, to Sean Miller, to Dusty May. And ultimately, as this was all going on and swirling around in a big hurricane, Jake Diebler just keeps winning and winning and winning. Lost a couple games as the head coach, but rallied the team, rallied the fan base. I think the guys played harder. The rotations were better. And ultimately, Ross Bjork decided to make him the new head basketball coach at The Ohio State University. Talk a little bit about what went on behind the scenes in the process, because this was far from a sure thing about a month ago when Chris Holtman was relieved of his duties. But talk a little bit about the process.
Well, as you know, at Ohio State, it's always about the money. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a statement of fact. That's just the way that it works. And, we talk about the importance of donors. And with NIL, donors have never been more important to a program, because if you have good NIL, you have a chance to be competitive. If you don't have good NIL, you have no chance to be competitive. And so when we initially talked about some of the names that were coming out, and Helping Technician was talking about, Thad Matta and some other names, that some of the heavy hitters were talking and supporting it. Those are the guys that I really try to focus on, because I know that without money, the Ohio State basketball is never going to advance. You talk about why is Ohio State basketball right now, not a top tier job. And, commitment to NIL is one of the things. I mean, we can talk about facilities. We can talk about coaching. We can talk just, commitment for the athletic department. But what it really boils down to is NIL money. Because in basketball, you can turn your whole program around with a couple of guys, two or three. You can have an ordinary team, and you add Daquan Cook, Mike Conley, and Greg Oden to it, and you have a legendary Ohio State team for the ages. So NIL is really something that's important in every sport, but certainly in basketball, because just the impact on one guy can have, or a couple of guys can have on your team. So Diebler really kind of ingratiated himself to the right guys that really want to support Ohio State basketball in a significant manner. It'd be names that you would all recognize from the donor pool. And they went to Ross Bjork and they're like, look, we'll get behind this guy. If you hire him and you hire this guy that we believe understands or represents the values of Ohio basketball and Ohio State, we'll support him. We'll support him in a big way. We'll come in and we'll make the type of financial commitments that allow you to go out and get the kind of players, go out there and get the kind of support staff. And I'll touch a little bit more on that as we kind of go along. But that's, it's funny how my own views, I talked about it yesterday. I was like, I'm kind of warming up to the idea of Diebler being the guy, just because, first of all, there was no Urban Meyer sitting right there that was like some obvious multiple national champion Ohio State guy that we're just like, wow, we have to have. So I think Diebler's got as good a chance as any. I think that the transformation that he made with the team was really nothing short of remarkable. And every good coach has got to start somewhere. Now, do you really want their first head coaching job being Ohio State? Not typically. But, look, when they hired Jim Tressel from 1AA to Ohio State, there wasn't a lot of people lining up. And I certainly wasn't one of those people that was lining up going, oh, wow, what a great hire. Well, we got the guy from the Penguins. This is fantastic. And I'm not saying that Jake Diebler is credentialed as Jim Tressel was, but certainly is unknown, certainly is untested at this level. So I think that once the money guys came behind it, they're starting to make the commitment to him. And I think that what you'll see the staff kind of coalesce behind him. And I think one of the names you want to look out for is ex-Ohio State player John Sanderson. He's the one who was kind of in the trainer that was kind of in the middle of the Michigan scandal, the Juwan Howard, pick your assault type of lottery thing. I think that he is a really, really well-respected strength conditioning guy on the basketball side. I could see him joining the staff shortly. I think he's serving as a consultant to Illinois right now, but I think that I think a likely landing spot for him would be with this staff, along with Jake's brother John. And the interesting thing about John Sanderson is he brings with him his son, who's a top 50, 2026 recruit, and I believe it's like an adopted son, transfer son, somebody else living under the Sanderson roof that's like a 7-footer with skill. So Sanderson could be a plus type of hire for Ohio State, and I just see the staff. It's kind of the perfect storm as far as I'm concerned in terms of the money is supporting, coalescing behind Diebler. The fans are coalescing behind Diebler. I can just feel like the excitement is palpable. I really do believe that Ohio State felt like under Holtman that they just weren't going anywhere, that the players weren't going anywhere, the team wasn't going anywhere, and everybody was just kind of stuck in neutral. And I think people are genuinely excited today, and that's a first step in terms of regenerating, Ohio State basketball. And I think Ohio State did a great move. And I want to mention one more thing, which was Ross Bjork. If you haven't had a chance to watch Ross Bjork's, where they signed the term sheet in front of the team and listen to him talk, and then compare that to Mean Gene Smith, it's night and day. I mean, it's like having the adult in the room versus having the child in the room. And I'm so excited about Ross being there. I'm so glad that Gene Smith is gone. And I think Ross gets it. I think he'll just be an unbelievable AD. Him and President Carter, what a great, thing to have staff alignment where you've got, guys like Ryan Day, your head football coach, and Jake Diebler and President Carter and Ross Bjork. I mean, like I said, I just love where we're at, and I'm excited about the hire, and I'm excited about the future of Ohio State basketball. And I didn't feel that way, days ago or a week ago, and I am today. So that makes me feel good. That long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
No, it's a great answer, and I think Jake Diebler did an amazing job. I thought down the stretch. Again, you have a team that's dead, they're beaten down. Again, I've been on bad teams. I've been on in the NFL. I was on bad teams, 2-14 team. I mean, I've been on bad teams, and it's like, to rally the troops and basically turn it around to the point where you're a couple plays away from playing in the Big Ten championship. You beat Purdue on the road. Purdue's got a 7-footer. They're a team that's kind of like a top five-ish type team. I thought it was remarkable what he did. And again, when the initial thought was there was a chance that Thad Matta would come back and have Jeff Bowles as his top assistant, and then Sanderson would be the strength coach. And that's what Conley wanted. That's what Evan Turner wanted. There was like kind of this rallying cry to kind of get the band back together again and whatever. But then Thad wasn't interested in it. Thad's he's living the life right now. He doesn't have the white hot spotlight of coaching at Ohio State, and he's made a lot of money. So I mean, sometimes when you're in a good situation and it's not life and death every single second of every single day like it is when you're at Ohio State, it's not a bad thing. Again, he doesn't really need the money. I mean, obviously he enjoys coaching, but Ohio State it takes years off your life. I used to joke when you look at Truss in 2001 when he got hired, and then you look at him in 2011 when he got let go. I mean, he looked like he aged like 40 years in 10 years. And Urban Meyer's the same way. You look at him in 2012, black hair, jet black hair. Then you look at him in 2018, man, and there's a lot of gray in that hair because it's a tough gig. It wears on the coaches. Ryan has aged noticeably because, again, it's either win the championship or bust, in both sports, in basketball and football. So that's just what we're expecting, And again, is it realistic? No, but it's also the bar is the bar. The standard is the standard. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, what type of stamp does Jake Diebler put on the program? Because again, you can go back to 2019. Young Ryan Day was a first-time head coach. He gets the whistle from Urban. After they win that Rose Bowl, Haskins' last game, and they beat Washington. And the first thing he does as a young 30-something-year-old head coach is fire Greg Schiano and fire Billy Davis. And he fired Urban's best friend, the linebackers coach, and then he fires one of Urban's biggest confidants and supporters in Greg Schiano. So again, that's fine, because when you have that whistle, all of a sudden you better make the staff that you want. And that's something that I always give Luke Fickell credit for, because he didn't get to build his staff. It was too late in the year. He retained everybody. And if you notice, like when he went to Cincinnati, none of the guys that were on the staff in 2011 were part of one of his calls to come with him to Cincinnati or Wisconsin. Like none of those guys followed him because those weren't really Luke's kinds of guys. So he's got a big decision to make here at that strength spot. And again, for those of you who don't know John Sanderson, he's an Ohio State guy. He's from Mansfield. His wife and him are both Ohio people. They won Ohio State. He is the most coveted strength coach in the entire country right now, to the point where Illinois is literally paying him through the tournament a huge amount of money just to be a consultant because one of his interns is the head strength coach there. So, he's that well thought of that after the Michigan thing went sideways and he got his settlement from there, he was immediately snapped up, and he's going to have 50 job offers by the time March Madness is over. Basically, every major program in the country would fire their strength coach to get John Sanderson, but he's a Buckeye. And he wants to be a Buckeye, and he wants to coach here. And if we would have hired Sean Miller, he's a strength coach. If we would have hired Thad Matta, he's a strength coach. So, again, it's gonna be interesting to see if Jake Diebler lets go of Quadrian Banks. Quadrian Banks is the incumbent strength coach, but he's a Chris Holtman guy. He's the guy Chris Holtman hired. So, what do you do there? I mean, and Quadrian Banks has an interesting background because he's got a big football background. It's not as much of a basketball background, but he's been with like the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles. And so it was kind of a strange hire. But at the end of the day, if you're, Jake Diebler, like you have to look at the fact that we lost 18 games in the second half where we led. Like, I mean, that's insanely poor. That's poor conditioning. Again, like when you talk about evaluating a strength coach, you look at how many soft tissue injuries are there? Does the team finish games? How are they down the stretch? Like we blew a lot of games down the stretch. It was like 18. It was some crazy number. And again, that has to come down to conditioning. How good a shape is this team? do they run out of gas at the end of the games? Because that's a huge issue, and that's something that I think John Sanderson would correct, because when he's operating with a real head coach, not Juwan Howard, who's a clown, a real head coach, then they're really, really good. I mean, he's really good. Players love him. He pushes them hard. He knows how to get the most out of these guys. And I think if you add Jake Diebler and then you get him a lieutenant like John Sanderson, then it's a grand slam home run. But again, this is going to be his deal, because I've been a part of teams and I've seen how teams work, and a lot of guys think that they're going to be retained just because well, Holtman got fired, and the guy that got the interim tag is now the head coach. But that's not always the case. In fact, I think it's better for this is Jake Diebler's one shot at being a big time college basketball coach, because if he goes out in flames and they go 5-25 next year, then he's gone, and it doesn't matter that you kept guys and you didn't hurt any feelings. Like, he's got to get in the guys that he wants. He has to get in his soldiers as assistant coaches, video guy, strength coach, because that's the most important part of coaching especially when you're taking a job that's something that he's not over his head, but this is a big step up from being an assistant coach. Like, when you're the head coach at Ohio State, that's a top 10 job in the country, and now everybody looks to you. So he's got some decisions to make. And again, if I'm him, all I'm saying is, look, make sure you have the best assistant coaches in the country and the best strength coach in the country. And again, I think that if you get John Sanderson, you do get the best strength coach in the country. And the thing is he wants to be here, and he has a ton of really compelling offers from the blue bloods of the blue bloods across the country. So it ain't like you're settling if you hire this guy. Nevada spring ball is going to resume on Tuesday. The players are back in Columbus. They have workouts tomorrow morning. Again, spring break it's always interesting how they do the new structure. This is an Urban Meyer thing, where he moved up the calendar for spring ball to start literally before spring break, because under Trussell, we would have spring break, and we just did conditioning up until spring break, and then we'd start spring practice like this next week. But they've already got a couple under their belt. What are your thoughts? Again, these guys get to all go out and freshen up a little bit and go to Miami and go to Aspen and go to Montana and anywhere else in the world. But what are your thoughts now that these guys are back and they get to put the pads on?
Well, obviously, we're excited about all the stuff we've talked about, but one of the things that we've talked a little bit about, but not as much, is this whole. And we've talked about the running back. Obviously, we know we've got a running back coach position open right now. We've talked about that ad nauseum. Tony the Trader Alford left us kind of in the lurch, and we've got an open spot right now. But the whole Chip, it was interesting looking back on Chip Kelly's, resume, and it had been pointed out that Chip was a running backs coach for 4 years at New Hampshire, and he really understands that position. And it's going to be interesting to see with him acting as the kind of the interim running back coach in terms of what he does with that. And I just think that's a really interesting story, kind of as we kind of head back into spring balls. What does he do with this running back position? Because somebody on the board put on there, could Keenan Bailey take over running backs? He's done that before. He's done something with running backs, and then could you get somebody else in terms of doing it? And one of the agents mentioned that to me as well, which I found interesting. I don't know if there's any legs to that or not, but I just think I think what does Ohio State do with the running back coach position? Do they move things around in terms of doing it? And what does Chip do with that, considering the fact that he is the preeminent running game coordinator, planner, practitioner in college football, maybe in college football history? What does he do with that? And how quickly do they fill that position? And now that they're back on day one without the position filled, how active of a role does Chip take in terms of doing that? And I just think that's going to be really fun to watch in terms of watching the Chip game. We always knew that Chip would have influenced the running back room, but to have influenced it this directly, where he's kind of serving as a interim running back coach, I think that's going to be really fun to watch, and I think it's going to be really really interesting to see as they kind of go through spring football how he's interacting with the running backs, and if we notice anything different, or if it's just kind of business as usual. But I think that's going to be fun to watch, and that's something I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I think it's I think it sets the tone if you're Chip Kelly and you say, "Hey, I'm going to go coach Trey and Quinshawn like right now," because then those guys are like, "Well," because there's no doubt a part of Trey and Quinshawn where they don't feel like they're good enough, or man, my coach left me, and I know it's all smiles and hugs and kisses and stuff. Like right now with Tony basically stabbing you in the back and going to Michigan. Like, and again, say, "Hey, you got to take care." There's always the old, "Well, I got to take care of my family" line. Well, it's like, well, there's ways to do things and ways not to do things. Like you can go take a job. It just have to be literally our tribal who's cheated and beat us and scumbags and probation. Like again, it reeks of a desperation move and a lack of confidence. But I think that if you're Chip and you're Ryan, the thing I do is I'm like, look, Chip, you go coach Trey and Quinshawn. Those are two of our top 5 players on offense, if not our entire team. And love them up. Hey guys, we're gonna get you on point, on track. Like Chip spent 4 years as a running backs coach. He's a very eclectic football mind. He coached on defense. He coached the offensive line. So Chip is a football savant. He's a literal genius at football. But I think in this offense, with what you're trying to do and how you're trying to teach it, Tony, even if he was here, likely didn't know what Chip wanted the way Chip wanted it. So I actually think it's going to be a net positive for Chip to be handling the running backs coach. Because then instead of being an overseer and being over top of Tony during like ball handling drills and inside run and some of the drills they do, like he's literally going to be running the show. Because then the beauty of how we're structured right now is Ryan Day is already been the quarterback's coach. So he can like a tag team, like slap into the thing and say, okay, I'm going to go back to coaching the quarterbacks in interim until we find a running backs coach. So I actually think that it works out beautifully because I think it's going to make Trey and Quinshawn much better because I just think Chip Kelly's going to be like just, knee deep in getting those guys right on their tracks. Because again, a lot of what he does with his tight zone stuff is, there's a lot of timing and there's a lot of progressions and reads and the things that, frankly, like Tony, I'm sure had been learning, but he's not going to know it the way Chip Kelly did because it's Chip's offense. So it's Chip's running game that we're going to be installing. So that's going to be awesome. And I think that, like, again, from an optics standpoint, if I'm Ryan and I'm running the show, I'm like, look, Chip, you go coach the running backs, and I'm sure that they'll promote one of the off the field guys. I don't know if it's going to be, Sean Binkus or Riley Larkin. I'm just looking at the guys who are the offensive assistants that are there because you can have 10 coaches. So one of the offensive guys is going to get bumped up. Probably Riley Larkin, obviously, because Sean Binkus is already a GA. So it'll be Riley Larkin or Devin Jordan, but Devin's a receivers guy. He doesn't know how to coach running back. So it'll be interesting to see who goes where to kind of help in the interim, because that's a temporary thing. You get a waiver for it until they get a full-time guy. But I think that Chip having a deep knowledge of the running back position inside of his offense is actually huge for us. And again, I think that if you put a gun to my head and say, Kirk, one coach has to leave, I'm like, well, it's either Keenan Bailey or Tony Alford, because all the other ones we need. Like those other guys, like you can have a GA coach the tight ends, and there's a lot of teams that did that. They'd have a director of football operations as their tight ends coach, like in the MAC where the compliance isn't as heavy. I've heard stories about how, we just had our high school relations guy double as the tight ends coach because it's literally that easy. So, but I'm excited to see what goes on. Again, I think it's a great opportunity to upgrade the position because, again, like at the end of the day, Ryan Day is done. He was done with Tony Alford. Like he didn't extend him. He extended everybody. So, I mean, you can read the tea leaves that, hey, this was Tony's last year. I mean, Larry Johnson, who's 105 years old, got an extension, and Tony Alford, who's the second longest tenured guy on the entire staff, did not. So, again, the Mark Fletcher thing was the iceberg against Tony's Titanic. And, when we finished a year in recruiting at Ohio State where we didn't take a single running back because, again, Mark Fletcher, got the rug pulled out from under us, and Miami came in with a $2 million deal. They took him in NIL, but you have to know that. Like, there's no excuse for that if you're Tony Alford. You can't just be sitting there like, oh my God, I had no idea that we're gonna lose this guy of NIL. Like, you have to have your finger on the pulse better than that. And I think that's what Ryan Day was upset about. And the South Florida Express coaches had to go in there and tell Ryan, oh, there's nothing that Tony could have done, and they love Tony and they think the world of Tony, but it's $2 million. So guess what? He went to Miami. And again, I think, you have to know that because, again, people might love you, but if they're not going to commit to you, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's not how it works in this world. I got a couple super chats. I want to get through these. Paul Lewis, thank you for the hundo. Hi guys, what do you both think the run versus pass percentage will be with Chip Kelly? Again, appreciate you, Paul. That was exceptionally generous. So thank you, my friend. Nevada, I'll let you go first. What do you think our run pass split will be with Chip Kelly?
Man, that's a great question. I would think that it would, you know, I mean, obviously they're looking for balance. The stated objective at Ohio State is 50-50, 250 yards on the ground, 250 yards through the air. And boy, I'm going to say it's pretty close to that. I know that's a hedge answer, but I think that it's kind of like the force fields. It's kind of like the force where you've got Ryan Day and his I want to pass, and Chip Kelly and his I want to run, and they're kind of like going against each other. And it's like kind of like the melding, kind of like the Star Wars or something like that. And I think it's going to be like a standoff. And I think 50-50 is where we're going to end up with, because of these two guys that both have very diametrically opposed views of the world. Even though Chip is calling the plays, we're going to be talented enough to know. But if I had to guess which we're going to, I'd say 50-50, maybe shading 52-48 to running. That's final answer. 52-48 rushing to passing.
Well, I think Ryan's talked ad nauseum about it being he wants to go 250, 250, 250 on the ground, 250 in the air, probably closer to 300 in the air, but that's what he always says. And I think that so a 50-50 split seems optimal. Obviously, 250 seems low when you say it out loud, but 500 yards of offense, that's a lot of offense. And I think that the benefit to running the ball is that you protect your defense and you wear the other team out and you can establish your physicality. Again, Michigan just won the national championship because they were incredible at running the ball. I mean, they ran for 300 yards in the championship game versus Washington, and I think that that's where, again, I know it's all flash and throw the ball over the place, but when you really need it, can you run it? Can you convert short yardage? Can you get it in the end zone when it's the tight red, inside the 3 yard line, 2 yard line? Can you get it in? And I think that it's a lot easier to be really good at double team blocks and combination blocks as an offensive line if you consistently run the ball. Now, there's some times where Ryan turns into Texas Tech and he just is chuck and duck all day, and that doesn't help with the physicality that you need when you get down into like the super low red area, which is like the 3 to 1 yard line. Guys will be pass blocking and kind of moving horizontally and in some zone stuff, and all of a sudden you try to run power and we get blown up, because we haven't done it all day. So I think that that's something that Chip will help to establish. And again, a lot of his misdirection stuff is excellent, and that's something that I'm most excited about is like the variance of his running game. He does a lot of stuff where you don't have to be like Derrick Henry or Adrian Peterson to be proficient. You just have to be fast, get on the edge, put guys out in space, and give some of these like guys like Trey and Quinshawn one-on-one matchups versus the guys in the back end of the defense, the nickel back, the safety, the corner, and Trey and Quinshawn will win those battles. And if they miss, and and our perimeter guys block better, then that's a 70-yard touchdown. So that's kind of what we're trying to get to. And again, I think that something I want to watch is the physicality of our outside guys. Like, do our receivers actually start blocking, or do they just keep chilling and killing our running game? Because again, I am not just like Mr. Defend the offensive line, because again, our offensive line needs to get better, but they weren't terrible last year. But our receivers were awful at blocking. I mean, it was atrocious. And again, rushing isn't just directly tied to the offensive line, the running back, and obviously running the quarterback is a huge help. But I think that the offensive line gets an inordinate amount of blame when we suck at running the ball. But there's times where we block it up great, but we don't take out any of the secondary guys, so you don't get those long runs that can really pad your stats and make the numbers look a lot more sparkling than they are when you're topping off at 15-yard runs because nobody wants to block a safety or a nickel or get a corner out of the picture. Schof Steel Workshop, thanks for the dues. Appreciate you, my man. You guys, if you guys are on Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it, subscribe to Schof Steel Workshop. He is building his streaming platform. He made me a very, very cool knife. So if you guys want something cool, our boy Devin, Ohio 7715, ordered a sword. which is insane. This thing's made out of a railroad spike, which I didn't know because this thing is really heavy. I mean, this thing is really heavy, but it's super awesome. Again, you guys are amazing, and I appreciate you, my man, Shelf. Which is more important, strength coach or running back coach? That isn't even close. Strength coach. Running backs coach is the second most worthless coach on the staff behind tight ends coach. That's where you hide your energy guy, your new guy. Um, Usually it's a guy that isn't, he's not involved in the throw game. He's got the easiest position to coach. Strength coach is literally the pulse. He is the heart of the entire operation of the football program. Like as much as the head coach is obviously like the brain, but the strength coach is like the heart. If we're doing like an anatomy lesson right now, that's the difference. And like Mickey Marotti does a great job of getting these guys right, getting them mentally tough, getting them ready to rock. And you need that. I mean, I've been around bad strength coaches. I've been around amazing strength coaches, and the difference is palpable. And it affects the attitude of the team. It affects the conditioning of the team. Again, something that I was very I was on about with John Sanderson in Ohio State is we blew like 18 leads in the second half this year with Ohio State basketball. So that is on the strength coach because the kids aren't mentally tough and they're not in shape. So you can say whatever it is, but if you keep losing games in the fourth quarter, like imagine if Ohio State was winning in the fourth quarter of basically every game and we just kept losing. Eventually, something has to change from a conditioning perspective because guys can't finish it out with the lead. So that's why I think John Sanderson would be a great hire. Nevada, I know you're going to agree with me on this, but what is more important, a strength coach or a running backs coach?
Yeah, that one, that I think you summarized that pretty well. But I think what people have to remember is, there's restrictions on times when the coaches can be with the players and things like that through the year. I mean, but the strength and conditioning is a constant. I mean, the strength and conditioning guys are, they're their daddies much more so than anybody else is at Ohio State. When you said, who's the person that you're going to spend the most time with, the person that's you're most responsible to, the person you're going to be hearing from the most. No, the strength and conditioning is absolutely hard. That's why, when Urban Meyer came, his first hire was Mickey Marotti. I mean, that was, non-negotiable for him. Had to bring it over. He felt he was instrumental to his success. Wanted to bring him over to Ohio State. And strength and conditioning coach. It can't be emphasized enough how important that is, and how critical it is to the overall success, vibrantness, and just kind of togetherness of the team. So strength and conditioning coach by a mile.
It's an important role. Again, those guys, like in the off season from January until March, they spend 90% of the time with the players. Like there's some times where the staff gets to lead workouts, like namely when they go to 6 a.m.s and mat drills, but basically January and most of February, it's just the strength staff. So there's a lot of limits that are placed on the coaches, and those limits have been alleviated to a much bigger degree than before. When I played, it was like we never saw the coaches until the 6 a.m. workouts started. They weren't allowed to watch workouts. They weren't allowed to get reports, but that's been lifted a little bit because I think part of it is because it was stupid, and the other part is a lot of people were cheating and doing stuff that was illegal. And if you don't have a compliance officer living in the building like Ohio State does, then who's going to report it? Because a lot of people don't really know the rules anyways. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Got another super chat. Stranded Buck. Thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. Hey, Kirk in Nevada. Love the show. Wondering if the white zip-ups will be in a small or medium. Haven't seen the option since the drop. Maybe I miss it. Nevada OH.
IO.
We're going to try to get those in the next drop because sadly they are back ordered for multiple months. So for the small medium. So that sucked, because again, I've done these merchandise drops before, and sometimes you're at the mercy of stock, and they were way back ordered. So we're just like, well, let's just not, if we offer it, you wouldn't get it for months, but we didn't want to do that. So the next drop we do, when they're back in stock, we'll make sure to put those out there. Cause I know everybody wants the Urban Meyer quarter zip because Urban wore that on the Big Ten Network and it's a hot item. But yeah, it's a really nice piece of work. So yeah, and we're going to have some other stuff. Again, the good thing about this drop is we've got a lot of feedback as to what people want that we didn't offer. Like we're going to have some more women's shirts. There's different quarter zips, different polos. We're going to offer different brands. We're going to do some stuff that's not Nike and do some Under Armour. We might do some Carhartt, some Champion, whatever. So in the comments what brands do you guys like? Because again, I always like to give you guys what you want. So there's some people, we did Nike because that's Ohio State's brand. That's who they're affiliated with, and it's just easy. Everybody's owned a Nike T-shirt before. A lot of it is like Ohio State licensed stuff. So it's just easy with the sizes because sizes can vary wildly between brands. So we just wanted to make it nice and easy. We haven't done a drop in a few years, but it's gone ballistic in terms of the sales. So we really appreciate you guys. And again, it's always flattering for us when people want to rock our logo and our merchandise and buy flags. And I got all these great messages about people that want to take them on spring break and with their summer house in Florida, whatever. So put it on the boat. I think it's all awesome. We appreciate you guys so much. I think it's gonna be amazing. Another super chat.
No, hold on before I get that. Yeah, with your scoop gear, when you have your scoop gear, we want you to send us pictures of where you are with your scoop gear. So if you're traveling with your scoop gear, if you're somewhere on vacation, if you're at the Great Wall of China, if you're climbing Everest or whatever it is, we want to see you with your scoop gear on it. We want to see what the most unusual spot that we can find some of this scoop gear at. But as Kirk mentioned, the sales have been, I mean, it's kind of sales objectives, and our partner, our merchandise partner, it's like, what do you think? And we're like, yeah, I think we'll be at X level. And we blew by that in like the first 3 hours. So the response has been absolutely crazy. All the net proceeds benefit pay it forward. So we really appreciate what you guys are doing. And the merchandise is going to be first rate. The store closes this Friday. So when the drop's done, the store's closed. It's not like you're going to be able to go there on Saturday and say, hey, I forgot I want to order this item, because on Friday the store closed. So if you got an order, get to the store between now and Friday, get it done. And thanks so much for supporting the Scoop. But I wanted to say that before I threw it back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah, again, take the photos. And again, it could be you're at Myrtle Beach, you're down in Florida. I mean, I know that's where, and Put-in Bay, I mean, it's crazy because I see people and they like to get wild on spring break, so it'll be good. OSU Buckeye or OSU Bucks 08. Appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you for the 5. Could we have the tight ends work with the wide receiver O line and move Keenan or fire him? Not a Bailey guy. Ryan's boy though. Well, I think that the tight ends need an individual coach because it is a position. I don't think that they can just work with the O line or just work with the receivers. They do work with the O line a good amount, especially when we run plays and combination blocks. Like we'll come together with the tight ends a lot, just to go through basically the mechanics of a running play, especially. And I just think that we need more out of our tight ends. Like, I mean, I thought our tight ends weren't good last year. I mean, Cade was Cade. Cade's going to be an excellent NFL player. I love Cade Stover. I was on the Cade Stover train 2 years ago. Thought he was better than Jeremy Ruckert. Actually helped get him an NIL deal with 4-star Freightliner. He is a great player. Great player. He's a guy we're going to miss. He's a tough guy. And again, we need to find more toughness in that room and all rooms across the top of our program. But Cade, I thought he regressed as a blocker. Obviously, he had a lot of injuries. And the rest of our guys, we've got a lot of potential in that room, but it's time for some of these guys to get rolling now. I mean, Jelani they've got to get Jelani going. Like, Jelani's a guy that has as much ability as anybody on the team. And, if he's not our starting tight end, and I can see Will Kazmarek being the starter just because he's significantly older, being a fifth-year guy. G. Scott is going to be G. Scott. Like, G. Scott is, he's a nice player. Not sure if he's an NFL guy, but the team seems to like him. But we need to find someone that can really set the edge and block, And I think Will Kazmarek he might be that guy, but the guy really should be Jelani. Jelani's 6'7", monstrous, huge, explosive, physically. I mean, again, I can show it better than I can tell it. I'm going to put his film on right now, but Jelani needs to be the guy. Like, I'm just telling you, I watched his film, and there's no reason that he shouldn't be an all Big Ten level guy by year 2, if not year 3. But it's up to him. And again, I've been around guys like Jelani. They need a lot of, coaching sometimes. They need a lot of guidance sometimes, but he's a different animal now. I mean, you watch this guy, and the thing about him is he's an aggressive dude. He plays hard. He blocks. He plays defensive end. in high school. So again, here's Eric throwing it to Jelani, and again, the catching the ball and high pointing the ball, that stuff's great, but I like seeing the physicality on the edge. So we'll get some blocking clips in here on his highlight tape, but this is the guy that we need to see at Ohio State this year, and we didn't see this guy last year. Now I know it's a big step up going um, from Langston Hughes to Ohio State, but you know we need this guy to be our starting tight end. And again, it's going to take Keenan Bailey having his foot squarely up his hind end for basically until kickoff of the Akron game to get that done. Because again, I've seen these kind of guys before, and if you're not on them 25 hours a day, then good luck. But Nevada, your thoughts? Couldn't we have the tight ends work with the wide receiver O line and move Keenan Daly or fire him? Not a Bailey guy, Ryan's boy though. But what are your thoughts on what to do with the tight ends?
Well, look, one of the core values in the show, we always give it to you straight. We always tell you not what you want to hear, not what Ohio State wants you to hear. We tell you really what's going on. And we'll tell you the good, we'll tell you the bad, we'll tell you the ugly. And in the past years, we were like, I'm Cord Dennis, nice guy. Parker Fleming, not sure what he's doing, but probably going to be gone. You know that I'm not a Tony Alford guy. He's gone. I'm not a Keenan Bailey guy. He's gone. So we're really down to where we've got the staff pretty well configured. But the thing that'll help Keenan Bailey this year, and the thing that will help Keenan Bailey get the most out of Jelani Thurman, is going to be Chip Kelly. Because Chip Kelly now, you have to remember, Chip Kelly for the past, 10 years has been head coach Chip Kelly. And that involves admin, that involves NIL, that involves donors, that involves recruiting, that involves defense, that involves special teams, that involves lots of things other than the offense. Now Chip Kelly is focused solely on the offense. And so while he's coaching the players, he's also coaching the coaches. And Johnny Thurman started the Cotton Bowl. And a lot of people don't remember that, but he was starting the first offensive play of the game. Jelani Thurman was out there, so they believe in Jelani Thurman. They're invested in Jelani Thurman. They know what they have in Jelani Thurman. But the guy that's going to get it out of him, I'm telling you, it's not going to be Keenan Bailey. It's going to be Chip Kelly. And so I have high hope for that. The Keenan Bailey hire, again, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I don't understand it, but like you said, it's at a position where they don't really do a lot. But I think you can cover up for it with the Chip Kelly. No staff is perfect. It'd be great to have a perfect staff of 10 just absolute killers. I think we're close. If we fill this running back position, the correct way, we could have 9 out of 10, and 9 out of 10 is pretty darn good. So I'm not a fan of Keenan Bailey either, but again, I think we can get the most out of it without, changing who these guys practice with or rep with or whatever, but just by having Chip Kelly more involved, watching the thing work. He will not tolerate a lot of what went on last year and in years gone by with the Ohio State thing, and he's going to activate all aspects of it. You talked about earlier about Michigan and short yardage, Michigan and around the red zone. Man, a lot of that was JJ McCarthy. A lot of that was willingness to run the quarterback, willingness to JJ McCarthy had 10 rushing touchdowns the last 3 years. We've had 0. That's the kind of stuff that's going to get changed. But lackadaisical blocking on the edge, not getting the most out of your big stud 6'7" tight end, man, those days are over under Chip Kelly because new sheriff in town and he ain't going to tolerate it.
Yeah, and I think that's like again, it's nothing against Corey. I've known Corey for a long time, but he can't call out Keenan Bailey because and Brian Hartline is young, first year as a coordinator. He can't kind of run the show and get guys going the way that Chip Kelly can. And Chip, is going to be a guy he's going to develop these coaches now. Now, I don't know if it's going to be, with the ferocity of like Urban Meyer or to lesser extent Ryan Day, but he's good at getting his staff ready to rock. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, who steps up, what guys get better at certain areas. Because again, I've been a big critic of the perimeter blocking. I think it's something that, frankly, it just shows a lack of effort, a lack of, there's this stigma around football. This isn't just an Ohio State thing. This is like an across the culture of football thing where somewhere along the line, blocking became like, it was like you're like a try hard. You're like a guy, oh, you're blocking. Like, oh, are you not good enough just to make it purely as a wide receiver? Because, in the league, Justin Jefferson doesn't block, and Jamar Chase doesn't block. So why would I block? But somewhere along the road, that became acceptable, where these guys don't want to get their nails dirty and they play frankly soft, and it's hard to watch for me sometimes because like I see I see plays materialize when I'm watching film, and I say, God bless if this receiver would just give like 70% effort instead of 20% effort, and he would just go get in the way. And I'm not saying like you don't need to go pancake guys, but just get in the way. Like put your hands on the guy so that at least like Trey Henderson would have a chance to break some of these long runs. You know, because again, it's degraded over the past years. I mean, Trey had more explosive runs as a freshman than he did the rest of the years combined because our blocking's gotten worse every year. So I mean, that's not some sort of a coincidence. But I think that that's something, you know, and Jelani Thurman should be a dominating blocker with his size and his explosion and how big he is. And, you know, it's something that, you know, if he's not a major player on this offense, that'll be an indictment on Keenan Bailey. Because you can't have, he's like a Mike Adams. He's like a, you know, there's some of these guys that you meet and they're so talented and they're so good and they have such exceptional size and ability. And you have to get it out of them because they're not going to get it out of themselves. They're low motor guys, and you have to stay on them. And again, like Mike ended up being a second round pick of the Steelers, had a okay NFL career, but that was the guy that, you know, if he had the right coach behind him, I'm not saying like Mike Tomlin and that staff wasn't I mean, Mike Tomlin was a Hall of Fame coach, but like he needed like Bill Callahan. Like that's why like when and again this will be interesting for Dewan because Dewan lost Bill Callahan. Callahan went to the Titans with his son, who's now the head coach of the Titans. Like when Dewan got drafted and Bill Callahan, who is a notoriously meticulous, ball busting offensive line coach, that was the perfect fit for Dewan because Dewan needs that. Dewan is he could be a top 5 tackle, right tackle in the NFL soon, like real soon. But he needs a guy that is going to drive him, and he's not going to let him slack, and he's going to make him get down in a 3-point stance, and he's going to teach him the finer points of the game, and he's going to stay on him. And again, not every coach is like that. Some coaches are a little softer, some are harder. But like when you have that good blend of like good hard coaching with also excellent technical prowess, then you can see why Dewan can step in as a rookie, and he's absolutely fantastic. When Jack Conklin, their starting right tackle, suffered a really bad season-ending injury. So I mean, Dewan was ready to go, and you know and he didn't get no. I mean, he's seeing T.J. Watt right off the bat, and Nick Bosa, and like he didn't get to play Kent State and Akron. I mean, he was playing like NFL dudes, like NFL Player of the Year type pass rushers, and he was shutting him down. He was fantastic. So again, that's the thing is like I think the problem with some of these coaches is that too many of them are homies and they're not coaches. You know, and you need guys that are coaches, you know, and sometimes like when you're, you know, a young guy, you don't understand that. And you want to be boys and dap guys up and do that type of thing. And like, you gotta actually go coach a guy like Jelani. And if you coach him, he turns into, you know, a Pro Bowl NFL tight end. And if you don't coach him, he's just a guy. He's like a Luis Urizario guy that just falls by the wayside and nobody ever hears from him again. So, Sean Rollins, thank you for the 10, brother. Thanks for your scoop. Also remember, if you have a question, toss that in the chat. I will try to find that, and I'm sure that the Goon Squad will look for it. Torah, what is up, my dog? Akeem the Dream, Treasure the Torah. Thank you for the Scoop Ultra membership. Thank you for the wrench. Thank you for all you do for the site. Thank you for being a fantastic moderator, along with Devin, Cujo the Raccoon, and Kimmy, my wife, who are all smoking fools. Kim was moderating by herself yesterday and got rid of about 7 people. So she keeps it nice and clean for all of you. So make sure you show love to the trio that keeps our chat Michigan idiot free, which is amazing. Tora, Kirk, stay golden and strapped up. Love and respect to Nevada. Shout out to my Scoop family in the chat. I just want everyone to wish Devin, a.k.a. Ohio 7715, a safe trip home. He's on the highway. Get home safe, family. He's in like Palm Beach, man. He didn't have like that bad of a weekend. It's not like I think he had a good time. Talked to him a little bit ago. Appreciate you, Tora. Nevada, any thoughts on our moderating trio, Trioka?
I just think that moderating is a thankless job and an underrated job. And as someone who like watches other streams, and I'm not talking about on Ohio State, but just like stuff like MMA fights or anything else like that, and you see the comments and stuff that's going on in the thing, and I'm like, Oh my goodness. I'm embarrassed just reading some of this stuff. So to have competent moderation, to have dedicated moderators like Tori and like Devin and like Kim is really a blessing, and just a blessing for the whole community, because it does make it a nice place. That I don't mind having my kids come on and read the chat or read what's going on in terms of doing it. And we like it to be a family show. We like it to be a clean show. And if you're a Michigan fan, just know your role and keep it clean, and you can stay there, because if you're going to be trolly, then they're going to find you and they're going to remove you, and keep it a clean establishment. But Tora, we thank you so much for all you do, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's huge. And again, like we know a lot of you guys, this is a family friendly show. Again, you guys notice our content is very clean. So if you're watching it with your kids, your mom, your grandma, whoever, like you're never gonna have to be worried about what we do. It's just something that we just agreed that it's the best course of action for what we do. And we keep the chat nice and clean too, because again, a lot of you guys have this on your TV screen. Don't want your kids reading anything that is inappropriate. So if someone gets out of line, they get a nice bullet to the head, courtesy of our trio of moderators. And it makes it nice and easy, because with YouTube, once you get that bullet, you never get to come back. So I love that. Donald and Karen Rossback, thanks for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for being on here every night. Again, you guys are absolutely awesome. Kirk in Nevada, I got your backs, brothers. Love the show. Nevada OH.
I-O.
Yeah, we had an interesting comment a couple of nights, mornings ago on Buckeye Scoop, and you guys actually saw it. It was pretty funny, and you defended me, which was actually cool. And that person got smacked on our message board. We're not going to repeat it, but it was pretty interesting. But it was also pretty funny, because some people don't have lives. But Nevada, as we get into spring ball, some of the things I want to see is I really want to hear how Sonny is taking the linebacker. I think the Sonny Styles of linebacker transition is something that it looks good on paper. It looks obvious on paper. Big guy, outgrowing, playing safety, but he's never played linebacker before. Which again, I know people will, what's the difference between safety and linebacker? I mean, linebacker, man, it all happens right in front of you. It happens quick. You don't have as much time and space like you do when you play safety. How well does he read the stuff right in front of him? Because it seems like it'd be really intuitive. Well, football's football, but I mean, he's got to learn how to read guards, read tackles, read footwork, get to the right gap, know the assignments. Like it's a lot more than I think people realize. And again, like you have to do it at an ultra quick processing speed. Like James Laurinaitis was unbelievable because of how fast he could process plays, know where the ball was going, get there, and get a guy down, get a guy on the ground. That's why James was incredible. Like James was a supercomputer out there, and it made up for his limited athleticism. And again, I love James Laurinaitis. You guys know I love James Laurinaitis, but he'd be the first guy to tell you that he wasn't as athletic as Aaron Curry, a guy that came out as was a top 6 or 7 pick in the NFL draft his year. Guy ran a 4.4. He was 250, jacked out of his mind. Wake Forest, total NFL bust. He was trash. James Laurinaitis goes in the early second round. Should have been a first round pick. And he has a prolific career, all-time leading tackler for the Los Angeles Rams because he could process and he was smart and meticulous. Aaron Curry was a much better athlete than James, and he was a terrible linebacker. So I think that Sonny and his processing is something I'm going to be really excited to hear about. And what do you do with CJ Hicks? And is there a role where you get all three of the linebackers on the field with Cody Simon, with Sonny, and do you make CJ kind of a hybrid edge rusher sometimes? Because I think that's a skill set that people don't talk enough about, is that CJ can rush. He's the guy that can beat tackles, do a couple moves. And, when you're trying to get a little bit more juice off the edge with JT and Jack, do you make a hyper rush man package where you put CJ down at end and you move JT to 3 technique? I think it'd be interesting to see. Something I think they might experiment with. But what are some things that you want to hear about in spring ball? Because I think that the Sonny Styles linebacker transition is going to be paramount. And then obviously the musical chairs at the offensive line will be interesting to see how that looks this week. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to ask, I'll ask you, first of all, I'll answer a question, then I'll ask you the same question. I'll say, what's kind of an unsung sort, like if we had to pick something, we're talking about something people aren't thinking about, something that's not on the front burner, something that's not obvious, not intuitive, there's something kind of along the lines of you came in with the famous a player not on the Ohio State roster will take a snap this year at quarterback, and people freaked out, and that's because you knew Quinn Ewers was reclassifying and coming to Ohio State. What would be your kind of unsung story of somebody that's not really out there? And I'm going to go first. I'll go before you, so I'll give you a little extra time to think about your answer. But I'm going to go with, I know we're talking about Sonny. I know we're talking about CJ Hicks, but I'm going Gabe Powers, man. I'm telling you, I think he's going to make noise at that other linebacker spot. And it's like a horse race where you've got Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks, and we're watching those two, and all of a sudden you're going to see this Silky Sullivan coming from 49 lengths back, coming around the far turn, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, wow, that's Gabe Powers. Where's this guy come from? And all eyes are going to be on those other two, and he's going to zip on by and grab some playing time. So that's going to be my unsung Nevada prediction story of this year for 2024 is going to be the emergence of Gabe Powers. Could be wrong. That could end up being a bad prediction, but that's why it's one of our outrageous predictions threads. But I'm going to go with the emergence of Gabe Powers over Sonny Styles, over CJ Hicks at that other linebacker spot. We're going to need all four. We're going to certainly need three, but I think Gabe is going to make some noise. That's my crazy prediction.
I think the reemergence of Carson Hinsman from the dead.
Ooh, a good one.
Being raised out of, it's like he's like the Undertaker, like opening the casket up in the casket match, and the light comes out, and he comes in and lowers down from the ceiling or whatever. Like, I think Carson Hinsman is a guy that was left for dead by many. I think that he wants to be a Buckeye. I think that he wants to be great. He was tremendous in the weight room, per some really good sources of mine that are in there. And he's not taking the Seth McLaughlin thing laying down. And Seth McLaughlin was okay. I mean, I think he's got obviously got some years on Seth, or excuse me, on Carson, where he's a little bit older. But Carson, if anything would ever motivate you in life, what happened to Carson Hinsman is the ultimate motivation. Like getting benched, getting humiliated, watching the offensive line just get bludgeoned with Enoch out there. And Enoch's a very, very nice kid. So it's hard for me to come off the top rope on Enoch, but he wasn't ready to play. And again, that happens sometimes. It's no different than when you have a starting pitcher who's an all-star go out and get shelled, or an all-star goaltender in the NHL go out. There's some days where you just don't have it. And again, I'm not saying that Enoch's an all-star, but he didn't have it that night. And Patrick Wall gave up like 9 goals his last game with the Montreal Canadiens. And he's probably the second best goalie who's ever lived. So you have those nights sometimes. And when Enoch was having one of those nights, they just left him out there, and he got shelled, and it was ugly. And Carson was healthy and ready to go, and they didn't consider making the switch. So I think that, to go from being a starter in every game, including the Michigan game, where I thought he played good, not great, not a winning performance, but good enough versus a very, very good defensive front. I thought that it was interesting that was the decision they make, is let's just run with Enoch and make him the starter and put Matt Jones. And Matt Jones is a very, very nice kid. He didn't know the calls. And like, I could tell that after 2 drives, just because, again, I coached offensive line. I can tell when guys are struggling making calls, and we're not fixing stuff, and we're not changing cadences. And there's ways to make it a lot harder versus the defense. We made it as easy as possible. Honestly, if I was the defensive coordinator that got that, because their DC from Missouri ended up going to LSU like a week later, got a huge raise, $2.5 million guy. I probably would have sent Ohio State like a fruit basket or 10 grand or something, and say, hey, you guys go eat steaks because you guys got me this job, because we didn't do anything to help our offense and our offensive line. Because if you go on the same cadence every time, it's the same thing as being, imagine you're like Aaron Judge, and you know that every single pitch that you see is going to be a fastball. Like, it's like cheating. No off-speed stuff, no curveball, no slider, just literally all fastballs. Like, you're probably going to hit 90 home runs if you're talented. And that's what it's like when you go on the same snap count every single time, which we did. And nobody said anything, because I would have at least brought it up and again, this is when I was a little lowly GA, a little lemming, I would have said, look, they're killing us right now because we don't switch the snap count up. They know exactly when we're going to go. They're timing the blitzes. They're coming off the edge. We're not repointing and changing the protection. So they're killing us. And it's because we're stupid, And again, the offensive line wasn't great. They didn't play great, but they were put in horrible positions. And again, when you had Chip Kelly, who's actually a real life adult coach, who's a real life savant offensive guy, I can't imagine that he would let that go for an entire 60-minute game against a team with equal talent. So Carson Hinsman's a guy who a lot of people in the media left him for dead. They don't even put him in the two deep anymore. And lo and behold, after a really nice winter, he opened spring football as the starting center. Now, does that mean anything now? No. Have they put the pads on? No. But it is a something to me, because again, like if you're Caleb Downs opened as a starting safety, like day one. They weren't messing around. They didn't make him earn his, start off as the 2s or the 3s. He started off as a day one starting safety. They didn't do that with Seth McLaughlin. So again, Caleb Downs is only a true sophomore. McLaughlin is a 5th-year senior, I believe. So, that's something to watch for me because I think that the reemergence of Carson, because again, Carson was very young and he's got a lot of strength to gain because naturally when you're a football player in a good strength program like Mickey Marotti's program, from the time you're a freshman to sophomore to redshirt sophomore to redshirt junior senior, you're going to be significantly stronger. And not just stronger, you're going to be dramatically more confident, because now he's got a routine. He's got 12 starts under his belt. It ain't like, last year, the most ridiculous thing of all time is that Carson Hinsman, his first career game as the starting center was his first playing time. Because, with that redshirt rule, he didn't get into a single game the year before, and he could have played in 4. But again, we're so stat hungry and we're so stupid. And again, I really like Ryan Day. I think he does a great job. I vehemently disagree with the way that we are stat chasing and stat padding and playing guys deep into the fourth quarter so we can pad their Heisman numbers and their Blitnikoff numbers. I think that's stupid because then some of these young guys that need to go out and play in the horseshoe, they don't get to play until the next year. And again, people might think, oh, what's 10 snaps? What's 15 snaps? I'm like, dude, those all count because you want to get those guys on film just to evaluate them because again, it's live bullets when you're in the shoe. If you miss that defensive end and you're a tackle, your quarterback's going to get killed. And you don't get to experience that anxiety in a regular practice, let alone there's 80,000 people there. Yeah, I'd say 80 because by the end of the game, usually some people take off. But I think that that's tremendously important for the development of the kids. On top of the fact that from a moral, and again, maybe people aren't into moral victories, but to me, it's a moral victory when kids get to play in front of their parents, especially kids that are from out of state. Their parents are spending a crap ton of money to come up and watch them stand there every single game. So to get them in there for 5-10 plays, it's way different to play some plays than it is to throw up a goose egg and not play a single snap. But I think Carson Hinsman, I think he can win the center job. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Seth McLaughlin's the starting center tomorrow, but Carson's not going away. I mean, again, he's a young guy, and he's like, kind of in the same scenario as Devin Brown, except Carson actually played last year. He started 12 games. Like Devin started 1 game and obviously didn't get to finish it. But, those guys are 2 guys where they basically brought in older guys to replace them, and they started off as starters, and I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be real competitive. I got a couple more super chats. Let's get through.
Hold on. Just let me say one before you get to that. Your point about the cadence is such a good point. It's such a good point. And we've talked about it a little bit before, but man, that was malpractice. That was coaching malpractice. And again, these are examples of little things that it's easy. If you're lazy, you just go, our offensive line stinks. We need to improve the offensive line. But if you're a little bit more nuanced, if you're dive a little bit deeper, the guys didn't play great. We had some things, but stuff like that, we'd never changed our cadence. So you and I went through every snap, and you're like, look, same one, Nevada. They're timing their blitzes, Nevada. Here they come, Nevada. And it was the same cadence every single freaking time. So great point. Glad you made that now onto the super chats, but I just wanted to compliment you. That was a really good point.
I mean, I would have gone ballistic on the sideline because, again, as a player, when I'm an offensive lineman and I know that the defensive line is in on our cadence, I would have gone to Troy because really you only have to go to the quarterback. You can just go to Troy. And I say, hey, dude, let's go on 2. Just one time. Just do it one time because then it'll throw them off and they'll have to think about it. You don't have to do it every time. Do it if you run 70 plays, if you do 10 that are on two, then that changes all the math. It changes all the, they don't get that jump, and you might draw them off sides. But again, it just, it's not fair. I mean, it's not fair to the offensive line. But again, when you have a bunch of people, like again, when you have a bunch of kids that most of them never played football at like a real competitive level, they don't understand that. And again, I was watching that. Again, it doesn't affect me directly, but I felt bad for those guys. I really did. All right, Bullet Train, thank you for the 5. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Is the starting line starting to clear up? Thanks for the great content, Nevada OH. I think that these next 2 weeks are going to be huge. I think this is kind of moving. Like on golf, they talk about moving day on Saturday, where guys are either missing the cut or they're moving on to the championship Sunday. That's kind of what these next 2 weeks are. Like they haven't put the pads on. Obviously, they like Luke Montgomery at right guard. But they've also moved Josh Fryer to right guard. They've played George Fitzpatrick at left and right tackle. They've played Tigre at right tackle. They're trying a lot of different combinations right now to figure out what's the most prolific one for that first unit. But again, without any pads on, it's hard to tell who's good. I mean, you have some idea from last year, but Luke Montgomery going into guard now, that's a different world now. I mean, I'm telling you, and people, they think that's a natural fit, but when Luke's been a tackle his whole life, to go into guard, it's easy when you don't have pads on, when you're just in shells. But now Luke, when we go 101D and it's inside run, I mean, dude, he's going against Tyleek, who's the scariest defensive tackle in the country. He's 350 pounds or whatever he is, and he's twitchy and he's quick. And when he comes off the rock, man, you better have eaten your Wheaties, because that dude can rock. I mean, he will make you look terrible. And again, when you're a tackle, like I did not like playing guard. I loved playing tackle just because you have more space. I liked setting the edge in the running game. And I was just better at it. And now in the NFL, I probably should have switched to guard. I should have played guard. If I was smart as a young player at Ohio State, I probably would have jumped in and played some more guard. But I just, I was so much better at pass protection out at tackle because I was better at dealing with the longer athletic basketball type guys than I was with the bigger fat guys. And it wasn't a strength thing, but it's just like something where, like TJ Downing could play both, but TJ ended up being much better at guard than he was at tackle, which is why I beat him out when I was a freshman and he was a year older than me. But this is going to be the moving week for a lot of these guys. And again, the benefit to Ohio State, the greatest thing in the entire world for Ohio State is that when you put those guys out there with that first unit, they get a real look. Like you put George Fitzpatrick out at right tackle, he's got to go see Jack Sawyer every rep, or JT. You put Luke Montgomery in at right guard, he got to go see Tyleek and Ty Hamilton and Hero. And I mean, we've got legitimate guys on that D-line. So if they can hang in there versus those dudes, then they can block anybody in the country. So that's like the benefit to being at Ohio State is, it'll be real clear if guys are good, bad. And again, it also is a good test to mental toughness because these offensive linemen are going to get beat now. And they're going to get beat a lot over the next few weeks because, dude, you're playing the best defensive ends in the country, literally. So those guys are good now. And those guys have been going against pairs. They were going against parents. I mean, Jack and JT were going against Paris and Dewan 2 years ago. So imagine how good those guys are now that they're fourth-year guys, stronger, faster. They've both lost weight. They're leaner. They're quicker because it's money time now, man. There ain't no option. It ain't like junior, senior. This is money time. So those guys are rocked up and dialed in. So I'm excited to see JT and Jack because again, like our tackles when they're doing this tryout to figure out who's going to play left and right. And again, if they find a left tackle in the portal, they could easily move Josh Simmons to right tackle. Like that's not out of the question because Josh Simmons was playing right tackle week 1 of spring ball. So they're looking at every possible combination. And again, if there's some star that for whatever reason hits the portal, wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, there's also that you bring in a portal guy, you're probably going to lose a couple of those guys that are in their second or third year because they're going to say, well, if they're just going to keep doing this, then why bother? But that's my opinion on the O-line. Eric Bergdorf, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you, my man. If you have a question, toss that in the chat. Troy Brewer, thanks for the 5. Kirk, will the Titans lose respect for Keenan Bailey after he was beat up? Nevada, I will let you answer that, and then I will take my thought on it.
It's not a great look. There's nowhere in like the manual where it says, "Hey, as a coach, don't allow yourself to be beaten down by the strength coach after you talked to him inappropriately and threw on him and he decided to smack you down." So it's not exactly in the manual, but it's kind of an understood thing that you don't want to have people see that nobody wants us to have that happen. And I think with Keenan, it's just uh, I don't know. You guys know I'm not a fan. I know Ryan likes him. I know Keenan is that guy that knows how to say all the right things. He's kind of like Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver, where he knows how to say all the right things around the adults and stuff like that. And you look great, Mrs. Cleaver. Oh, this is great. And that's why I think he's Eddie Haskell, and I don't think he's a great coach. And I think players are discerning, and when they see something like that happen, I don't think it helps. Um, so, look, I root for all Ohio State coaches to be great. I have no axe to grind. This is not personal. Whenever I talk about this stuff with everybody, oh, Nevada, it's not personal. You know what's personal to me? My love for Ohio State football. I love Ohio State football like I love my kids. I do. When Ohio State football loses, it pains me like it does with your children, and I hate it when they lose. It puts me in a bad mood. When somebody hurts Ohio State football, I take it personally. I do. It's an affliction that I've had since birth. My mom obviously was born and raised in Buckeye. My dad, our whole family, our whole life has been revolved around Ohio State. So I do take it personally from that standpoint. But I can take it personally, but it's not personal. I just want Keenan Bailey to be better, and him getting beat up by the strength and conditioning coach probably didn't help. But maybe he learned a lesson, and maybe he'll grow from that. So that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea like what was going through his mind when he decided to try a strength coach. Because again, I get and again, I don't agree with working out with your players either. I think that's kind of a douchebag move. Like I don't like you're there to coach, you're there to observe. Like and again, maybe that's like his idea of building camaraderie and whatever. But like I mean, going through the dawn patrol workout with the players, like I just think it's stupid. But then like when you throw them the equipment down on the ground and the coach yells at you, "Hey, don't throw the equipment on the ground," like I would just respect that. Like if I did that, if I did something on accident in Mickey's weight room or this was out on the turf field at the Woody Hayes, like I just respect it. And I say I would apologize. I mean, is what I would do. I would be, "Hey, I apologize. My fault. It slipped. I dropped it, or I didn't know." Like that's the good move. Because again, like those strength coaches work exceptionally hard. And I always had a great relationship with Mickey Marotti and Kenny Parker, Phil Matus, like all the guys that worked in that strength room, I had the utmost respect for because those guys get in at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're there sometimes till 6 or 7 at night. So it's a hellacious schedule. But the fact that the strength coach said something to Keenan, and then he did the exact same thing again as like an FU to the strength coach, and then he tried the strength coach when the strength coach got in his face and said, "Don't break our equipment," essentially, and then he punched him, and then he got like beaten down to the point where like the players had to like pull him off of him. Like that's insane. It really is. And I mean, I sit there and I'm like, how big of a douchebag are you to do something like that? Because again, that's what that is. Again, like if you screw up, you should apologize and not do it again. You shouldn't try the guy and think that you're cool. And then you get, I couldn't imagine if my position coach got beat down by another coach in front of me over something he started. Like, how are you supposed to respect that guy? I don't know. I mean, that guy better have a real long list of really good achievements to be able to get that thing back. Because if you're some young guy who really doesn't deserve that job, I don't know why I should listen to you. I mean, I guess you control the playing time, but I mean, that's impossibly bad. And again, there's a history of really stupid behavior that's gone on with some of the younger coaches in the Woody Hayes. So again, I'm not going to regurgitate all of it, but some of those guys need to grow up because again, like some of those guys would be working. I mean, they'd be coaching at Otterbein if it wasn't for Ryan Day hiring them. And a lot of these guys, when they get let go, they don't land at Alabama. They don't land at Georgia. I mean, there's a pattern of that. So again, these guys better be careful because again, I think it's stupid. And when I heard it, like I didn't believe it. So then I tried another source and verbatim exactly what happened. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, what are we doing? but then that's what I worry about. Like when someone is that stupid and immature, inside of the Woody Hayes, and then like you need to be the father figure and the guy that can develop and really push Jelani Thurman. Like, but that's how you act. Like, that's worse than Jelani. So again, that's just I've seen it, and I mean it's literal insanity to me. Donald and Karen Rossback, thanks for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 5. The wife and I can't make it together at Buffalo Wild Wings for spring ball. That is a shame because it is going to be epic. We have to save our leave to go to our granddaughter's soccer tournament. That is a very worthy deal for your leave, but I appreciate you guys both. Nevada OH. I haven't been hammering the meetup, but I need you guys to come to this meetup. April 13th, the day of the spring game. Before you go to the spring game, 9 a.m. to 11:30, Buffalo Wild Wings, Lane and High Street. Literally a 5-minute walk to the stadium. So I'm going to be there. Kim's going to be there. We're going to have a whole cadre of Scoop members there in our Scoop gear. It's going to be a blast. Buffalo Wild Wings is a huge sponsor of us, and they wanted us to do a little get-together. And I was like, I will get people there if it's the last thing that I do. So I appreciate you guys. If you guys want to meet us, shoot the crap, ask questions, do whatever. I'd love to meet all you guys. So it'll be 9 a.m. Again, I will push this thing hard going towards the game. And it's probably going to be as exciting of a spring game as I can remember, just because of the newness, Chip Kelly, Caleb Downs, Will Howard. I mean, you're going to see a lot of fresh faces in the shoe, a lot of superstars for the first time. So there's a lot of excitement around this thing. So I'd love to see you guys there. Again, it's the Buffalo Wild Wings on Lane and High Street. I think it's going to be amazing to meet a lot of you guys. And it's always fun. Like I said, I met Alpha Buckeye today. And he's been on message boards for 20 years. And you just never know when you do a screen name, what do people look like? And then Alpha came in with his friend, and they were hilarious. And we had it sucked because I had to go to the grocery store for Kim and the kids. But I would have sat there all night and talked football with those guys because we were dying telling stories, and there are some funny dudes now. So Alpha, I appreciate you, my man. That was great. And also like meeting, Steve Shipball, who again, his wife said, leave Kirk alone. Don't talk to him. And I was like so happy he did. And he's a veteran, which is awesome of the Gulf Coast War. So I get to thank him for his service and everything. So I love that. So again, don't be a stranger if you guys see me out, because I am kind of gigantic when I walk around. So if I'm somewhere, you guys usually probably can see me or notice me. Eric Bergdorf, thanks for the deuce. Nevada, why do you think Gabe Powers is on the bench?
Well, why do I think Gabe Powers is on the bench? Because last year we had Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers and Cody Simon in front of him. And this year you got Cody Simon back. You got Sonny Styles. You got CJ Hicks, which are both, ultra 5-star type of players competition. And I think it's do or die time for Gabe. I think the competition is fierce. I think there's a window open right now where he's either going to have to step through it or get passed by, because if you don't take the ring now and you're Gabe, then you're probably going to be looking elsewhere. And I'm not saying that to be Mr. Mean, or I'm not saying that to be, wish that upon anybody, but just trying to keep it real. I think he realizes that this is the time that he's got to do it. And I just love him as a player. If you go back and watch his high school tape, talk to anybody who's ever been around that kid, he is just a football player. He's an instinctive football player. Reminds me a lot of Laurinaitis. I'm not saying he's anywhere near as good as the great James Laurinaitis, but plays a lot the same way. Very instinctive, very intuitive, gets to the ball fast. When he gets there, the guys go down. So I think it's a tall order. That's why it was kind of an outrageous prediction. I actually like Kirk's outrageous prediction better than mine, but I'm still riding with my guy Gabe. I think he's going to have a great spring, but he's just got some great guys in front of him, and competition's been tough, and it's been tough to get playing time. But I think his time is now.
Yeah, I saw Gabe twice in person his senior year when he was at Marysville, and really good player. I mean, he's a guy that both played both ways, played tailback in the wing T, which is kind of like a motion back, and he also was he kind of was like a nickelback, kind of a Sam linebacker walkout guy, and they blitzed him a lot. Like they'd play him out to the wide side of the field, super athletic. But I have an affinity for guys that go both ways, because you don't see that much anymore in high school football, and he did, and he played, I'd say probably 80% of the snaps, and he was a factor both sides of the ball, and he was a guy that obviously jumped off the field and was really, really a good player, really fluid. And he was committed to Ohio State at the time, so obviously I was paying attention to him. But I think he's got big talent, and I don't think that I mean CJ I think is probably a little bit more athletic, but who can process information quicker is what it really comes down to. Who can get through the murk of playing linebacker when there's offensive linemen coming in front of you? Who can get off blocks? Who can get to the ball? Who can? And again, this is one that it seems obvious, but you got to say this in these competitions too. Who can stay healthy and stay out on the field as well? Because sometimes a lot of these things will get decided because a guy gets hurt, a guy gets dinged up, and it doesn't have to be like a catastrophic injury. But if a guy misses 3 or 4 practices during spring ball and he's in a really tight race, like it's like blowing your tire out, in the last few laps of like the Indy 500 or something. Like it's just not optimal. Even if you're maybe the better player, I think that durability is important this time, and you got to knock on wood that you don't get hurt and take care of your body and get treatment and do all you can do. Paul Lewis, again, thank you for the 50. Appreciate you, brother. You're the absolute man. Thank you for being on here every night as well. Kirk Bailey felt he was invulnerable due to harm due to his relationship with Ryan. In my opinion, he was wrong. I agree. I mean, it's well known that Keenan Bailey is Ryan Day's guy. And again, Ryan promoted him, and I've heard good things about Keenan. I want to be fair. Like, it isn't just all pile on Keenan because he's the young guy, and our tight ends weren't real good last year. But I think that this is a big year for him. I mean, again, you've got physically as good of a tight end as we've had in Jelani Thurman, and I thought our tight end play dropped off noticeably last year with Kevin Wilson departing to go to Tulsa. Because again, Kevin Wilson is one of the best football coaches that's ever been at Ohio State, that's ever put on the uniform. He excellent offensive line coach, excellent tight ends coach. Ran Oklahoma's offense when they had Sam Bradford and Adrian Peterson, and probably the best offenses in Oklahoma's history. He's a savant level guy. I thought that our offensive line declined a little bit with him leaving, because I always liked the thought of having Wilson in there because he's a full field guy. He can coach the receivers, the quarterbacks. He coached quarterbacks at Oklahoma, coached the offensive line at Oklahoma, but he's a guy that at tight ends, he could really help out with everything, but he really helped out with the offensive line a tremendous amount. And I thought that we missed him dramatically at both offensive line and tight ends last year. But again, prove me wrong. Again, I want these tight ends to be good. Again, Jelani Thurman should be an all Big Ten candidate this year. Like, there's no reason to wait. Now, obviously, you're going to have, Will Kazmarek, who's significantly older. G. Scott's been here. He's older. So there's going to be some deference to the older guys to start. But Jelani has more talent in his big toe than those two guys have combined. So it's time to go develop that talent, because Jelani is a generational type tight end, especially at Ohio State, because he's more physical than Jeremy Ruckert is. He's not as athletic as Jeremy, but he's overall has, I think, a higher ceiling than Jeremy did. And Jeremy ended up being a mid-round pick, and he's had a couple of years with the Jets now. Nevada, your thoughts? Did Keenan Bailey feel that he was invulnerable to harm due to his relationship with Ryan? And do you believe that he was wrong?
Yes and yes. And I mean, I think people have a pretty good idea about Keenan, and but again, I appreciate your appeal for fairness, because sometimes people make mistakes and they're young guys and they don't handle things the way that they would as they kind of get older. They get a little bit more seasoned. And as I said earlier, man, I just want Ohio State to be good. I want Ohio State to be good. I want Ohio State to win every game by 50 points. I want us to crush those weasels and, send those guys scurrying back to the little rat hole that they came from. And I'd love to see us win another national championship while I'm still alive, before I'm taking the eternal dirt nap. And I think this 2024 is the year to do that. So, look, I just want Ohio State to be great. And so if Keenan Bailey being great helps Ohio State be great, then I'm team Keenan Bailey. So let's go, Keenan. Get it done. Get those tight ends going, and let's win the Natty.
That's a little morbid until I'm put into the dirt. I mean, I'll sprinkle you on my Buckeye tree. I'll name the cocoa dispenser the Nevadabuck in memorial Nevadabuck cocoa, the $25 cocoa thing.
as a tribute to me, when I die, I want you to wear your jersey to the game so everybody knows who you are or something like that. You wear your Kirk Barton 74 jersey and just kind of walk around with it and stuff like that. Do that just to do it, just to troll. I want to troll you one final time for the grave. Just do that. That would be great. That'd be a fitting tribute to me, I believe.
Burke Carton, the Burke
Burton Carton.
Carton jersey. Now I'm gonna make sure if you do an open casket, I'm gonna make sure you're buried in that horse head that when we did the big Nevadabuck reveal. Why does Nevada have a plastic giant horse head on? I don't know. It's his son's from his pep rally, the basketball pep rally head.
He's trolling me to the end.
Oh my god! People will be like, "Oh, this is gonna be the big Nevadabuck reveal." The open casket, and you'll still have the horse head on, like the googly eyes on it. It'll be perfect. Mike Gillickson, thank you for the deuce getting on late. Any word on the running back coach hire? I think that they're still deciphering between Gillespie and McCullough from Notre Dame. That should get done pretty quick here in the next few days. But I think Ryan's going to take his time. Ryan's got the luxury of having Chip Kelly, and I think that they've got like a good spread on who's going to handle what in practice. Because again, like the benefit to Trey Henderson and Quinshon Judkins is you literally have the guy who created the offense and knows the offense better than anybody in the entire country coaching you now. Because Tony Alford, for whatever he was, he doesn't know this offense the way Chip Kelly does, especially the run tracks, the patterns. So I think it's going to be a big benefit for these guys, learning exactly what they want, how he wants it done. Because at the end of the day, if the play caller is coaching you up and likes what you can say, then I think it's the best case scenario for all involved. Nevada, your thoughts on the running back coach hire?
Yeah, no, I think Gillespie is clearly the guy that they want. The issue is do they upset their salary structure? They've kind of got that position slotted, as we all know what Tony Alford was making. What they got, Gillespie would be significantly more, and it's not so much that money, but what would be the impact on the rest of the staff? And I think that's potentially a hang up. The second thing is, I know Chip has got a couple of names that he's asking Ryan to interview, and Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, we've always talked about when he came over here, would he bring his guys with him? Would he want to, put his mark on the offense? Well, now his chance to put it. I mean, there's an open running back coach position, and Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. So I think it's silly not to think that he might not go after one of his guys. So do not be surprised to see a couple names emerge that maybe we haven't been talking about here in the next 24 hours that are Chip Kelly guys that he's asking Ryan Day to take a look at, because I know Chip wants to put his imprint on this position.
Yeah, I agree. Jam OSU, thanks for the deuce. Do you think Ryan Day's approach hurts discipline? I think at times it does, and it's reared its ugly head at like the worst possible times. Like I always go back to like the G. Scott headbutt at the Michigan home game was the dumbest penalty I've ever seen. I mean, that was up there with Sean Crable like tackling Troy out of bounds and giving us an automatic first down. In terms of like the magnitude and the sheer stupidity, like those things are a tie for my lifetime. And it rears its ugly head at bad times. And I think that it's something that I think he's trying to improve. He wants to improve. He has to improve for us to like truly be great. But I don't, his approach is a lot more new age than Urban. And again, you see some of the old timers like Urban and Saban and the guys that were much harder on the kids. Like those guys are kind of going by the wayside at this point because of the transfer portal. Because if you want to go rock a kid's world every day, he gonna be hitting that portal now. Because these guys all have offers. Like these guys that are the top drawer dudes, they have real money offers to go and hit the portal. And so you better be careful dealing with some of them. But Nevada, your thoughts? Does Ryan Day's approach hurt discipline within Ohio State?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think those are easy to point at. Look, there's always been undisciplined plays that you can kind of point at and isolate. Am I a fan of Ryan Day twerking before games and doing the mosh pit and stuff like that? No, it's not my thing. But maybe I'm an old guy. Maybe I'm just an old guy, and I got to get off my lawn and kind of get with it. But I just know that the older coaches, the Sabans, the Mullins, the Myers, they're like, man, get me out of coaching. I don't I don't ever want to go back. I'm glad to be in the booth, and they're glad not to be done. So I think the pressures that Ryan Day is dealing with and the stuff that he's having to deal with is unlike anything's ever that's been presented to a coach at Ohio State. And so if he compensates for it or has to deal with it by dealing with these players differently. I think we just have to embrace it. So I'll say I don't think it really affects us that much, even though kids do stupid stuff, because sometimes kids just do stupid stuff.
It is very, very true. Eric Bergdorf, thanks for the deuce. Ryan Day as CEO, does he get the job done? I think he does. I mean, I think that this has been as good of an offseason. And again, even if they hired like me to be the running backs coach tomorrow, like it would still be the greatest offseason in Ohio State history. Like if they hired anybody, we'll be fine. Because again, I think that Tony Alford leaving will be addition by subtraction. I don't care what anybody says, but there's nothing worse than having a disgruntled employee who's salty he didn't get an extension and he's back channel looking for his next job, because that's what's going to happen. Like when you're working on an expiring contract, like a lot like Corey Dennis was last year. Like Corey Dennis, they just never extended him. So he was, you kind of have that thought of impending doom where you're like, well, hey, they haven't come to me for an extension yet. Like, does that mean that I'm gone? And again, I like Tony being out of here as opposed to, tick, tick, tick. I mean, Corey Dennis was like on the road recruiting a week before he was gone, and I'm sure he knew he was gone because, you don't wait until the 18th hour to go extend a guy if you really want to extend him. But you're talking extensions like a year in advance. And again, Larry Johnson got an extension. He's 78 years old or whatever it is, or 97 years old. So again, if they want you, they'll let you know. And if they don't want you, they'll also let you know. If you're working on an expiring deal, they don't want you. So again, I think, instead of having a disgruntled employee loitering around the way he is and whatever, I'm good with him moving on and good riddance. Nevada, your thoughts. Ryan Day as CEO, does he get the job done?
Well, I am 100% all in on Ryan Day. I think he's. Yeah, I said that on January 4th or 7th or before all the magic started happening. I absolutely am pushing all my chips in on him and getting the job done. Couldn't be more excited or confident in his abilities as a CEO to kind of lead us to great things. This offseason's been magical, and there's nothing worse than having an employee around that doesn't want to be there or is upset for whatever reason, because they do all this passive aggressive stuff and all this little petty stuff, and you just realize how small they are as people, and you just want them out of there. And I'm sure that for Ryan, while this timing wasn't good and he wishes he had more opportunities to have guys that were available for jobs, to have somebody who's a cancer kind of taken out of your body, I'm sure part of him is relieved that happened. And I know as a fan and as a person who follows Ohio State football as closely as anybody, I am telling you, we're going to upgrade. Burke Carton would be a huge upgrade. We won't get Burke out of retirement, but we'll get somebody else nearly as good, and it definitely will be an upgrade.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like when you have a cancer inside the body and there's that negativity and there's that stewing. Again, I very limited 3 years of coaching, but like I remember being in that room when we decided to play in that stupid Gator Bowl in 2011. And I remember what it was like being around the coaches that were retained and the coaches that were gone. And I'm telling you, I was retained, Vrabel was retained, Fickle was retained. And Vrabel had to go through a couple interviews with Urban, but Fick was retained, Stan Drayton was retained. And then the guys that weren't, Jim Bowman, Nick Siciliano, Doc Tressel, Jim Haycock, who I loved, who was our DC, was a fabulous defensive coordinator, great D-line coach. God, who else is it? Paul Haynes. Those guys are all gone. So there's, when people know that they're out of a job, again, you guys have all been in, multiple facets of work, I'm sure. And if you're around people that know that their position is getting eliminated or whatever, it's not good. It's better just to knock it off in one fell swoop. And again, you've talked about being around like someone who's toxic and isn't, they don't pull their own weight and they're disgruntled and it's better just to get rid of them. It's better just to fire them. Cause then once you have people that are all pulling in the same direction, then you can see the talent really flourish. And that's something that, again, I've seen it before. You get rid of the toxic mess, the toxic, bad, talentless people, and then you let the talented people flourish, and it's like magic happens. So yeah, Jeremy Moreland, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the 5. Please tell me it was Schlegs who folded up Keenan Bailey like a cheap lawn chair. Ken Taco Hut, laugh out loud. I love the inside jokes. It's always great. And it was not Schlegs. Schlegs is only a part-time guy. I'm not sure. I don't know if he's part-time for good or if it was a temporary role. But Schlegs does not work weekends. Like he goes back and forth from here to Jacksonville, where his home is. So it was definitely not Anthony Schlegel. Because Schlegel would have killed him. I mean, Schlegel's he's a tough cookie now. Like I wasn't a guy that got in fights. I didn't have, of all my paranoia, as a player, I didn't, I got in a bunch of fights when I was young. But I was just like, if I break my hand and lose my starting job because I punch a guy in the helmet, like I'll feel like the biggest moron in the history of mankind. Because, these digits, even if you drink milk and stuff, if you hit a plastic helmet really hard, you could easily break a finger. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to hold a jersey like I had to do. Without a couple fingers or whatever, it's miserable. So I was always paranoid about that. Plus, I thought it was a waste of time. No, but if you're young and you're trying to go scrap and win a spot, I was good with that. But like once I was an established dude and a starter and like written in ink every week, I wasn't trying to fight. I was like, I'm good. And most of the guys didn't try me because they knew I was a little off kilter. But we kind of had that understanding, like, hey, I'm not going to fight you. You don't fight me. Like, leave me alone, and let's just get through this practice and make each other better. Lee McAllister, thank you for the 10. What names are you thinking, Nevada, as the Chip Kelly guys? Also, I hope to see player rotations in all positions. Great show, guys. Keep setting the bar. Nevada, I know this is tough because like we've seen guys like DeMarco Murray, who I don't think him and Chip Kelly get along. Deshaun Foster would have been an obvious one, but he got promoted to head coach at UCLA. But outside of that, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a Chip Kelly guy because where Chip Kelly's been, up at Oregon, UCLA, those schools don't really recruit the same areas that we recruit heavily because they're so far West Coast and so far Northwest. Oregon's a national team, but they're not pulling guys out of Florida and Georgia and Texas like we generally do. The Carolinas, like that's a totally different demographic. And I think that there's going to be, if I'm Ryan, as much as I want a really good running back coach, I want a guy that's a dynamic recruiter in the South. That's like my number one thing. That's why Robert Gillespie would be a grand slam home run because he's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He played for the Florida Gators. He's been at Bama. Like that's a grand slam home run. I'd pay whatever that guy wants. And I'd give him like a 3-year deal. But your thoughts on that, Nevada? What names, again, because sometimes it's hard to find these names outside of the obvious. And your thoughts on player rotations at all positions?
Yeah, well, look, what I'll say, I don't want to just throw out names because a lot of times people just give you a list and I'll just throw out names. What I'll say is that it is possible that they go to a guy that hasn't been traditionally affiliated with the running back position per se, but maybe has demonstrated recruiting chops and other things because the running back position, as we've talked about Chip Kelly's influence on that and I won't say simplicity, but the lack of complexity of coaching the running back position. So let me sit on that one for like another 24 hours and get you guys a couple of names that you guys might want to look at. But I'd say there's a couple of people from UCLA in previous existence that Chip feels very highly of and may want to put in there that you wouldn't normally associate with running backs. And we'll just leave it at that for now. As for rotations, was the question, are our rotations good or bad or
no,
what was the question?
The question is, Lee McAllister asks, he hopes to see player rotations at all positions. I just wanted your thoughts on that. Would you prefer that?
Yeah, just, I've talked about this before. Ryan has pledged that he is going to change his ways. He's told backups that they'll see more action this year. This isn't just, this is stuff that he said. And, it's like Urban making his little sheet of, how I'm going to spend time with my family during my time at Ohio State and life balance. Ryan is vowing in 2024 to rotate guys more. So I'm going to take him at his word that he's going to do it. I think it's absolutely essential. I think it cost us at a number of different positions in a million different ways. I think it was stupid. And but I think Ryan realizes that as well, and hopefully they're going to resolve that.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see if we get some more young guys in the games, because it drives me crazy when we don't get some of these young guys going. Um, and I apologize. John Sanderson actually went to OU, not Ohio State. My fault. I was saying that earlier. But he transferred out after 4 years because O'Brien didn't play him in the NCAA tournament. So shout out to my man Paul for shooting us a note and giving me a little correction. So that's my fault. I apologize for that. And again, I'm not super familiar with basketball, so I'm learning. But I'm excited about Jake Diebler. I think he's going to do great. Gary Oblinger, thanks for the 5. Being a former offensive lineman, is it easier to block a 4-man front or a 5-man front? Obviously, it depends on the players, but that is an excellent question. And again, I would expect nothing less from the people on Buckeye Scoop, on this podcast, and also on BuckeyeScoop.com. Do a little quick coaching deal here. And I don't know if I can pen these up. I'm going to try to. So this is what is known as a 4-man front. So, Guillermo, take your question down. A 4-man front, and this is nickel defense. This is what you see traditionally. Like the 4-3 is kind of dead now, just because everyone plays a nickel. The nickel's over the slot. But you see yeah, it is gimmicky playing nickel defense like everyone in the world plays. Sam linebacker is basically the left end. Then you get your D-tack, your 3 techniques. This has 2-3 techniques and a D end. The 4-man front is always much easier to block because you get better double teams between the guard and tackle. They're a lot more flush. They're a lot more common. The odd stuff, which there's not many teams that play a 5-man front, just because that is like that's like seeing like a knuckleball in baseball. Like you don't see many people throwing a knuckleball, but when they throw it, if it's good, it can be really difficult to go against. But this is much easier. Like this is like an old 3-4 front. Like the Steelers used to run. Again, this isn't as prevalent, but if you walk the cat and the dog up on the line, again, these are cute names because I've never heard it called a cat and a dog before ever. But that's what they went with on this diagram that I just kind of ginned up, or I just found online real quick. If you put the cat over the tackle and the dog over the tight end, the TE, that would be kind of like what a 5-man front would look like. Kind of like the old 3-4 defense. You don't see it very often. You see a lot more 3-3-5, which is basically you've got 3 down linemen. Then you've got like a Cat, Mike, and Will, and then you've got 5 DBs in the game. That's a lot more prevalent. That's been really popular recently. But the thing about like a 5-man front, which is really a 3-man front, it's an odd defense. You don't get the double teams like you do in a 4-man front. Like I love playing against a 4-man front. I hate playing against an odd front. But with an odd front, you better have 3 monsters on the D line. Like you better have the hardest part about playing an odd front is you can't find that monster nose guard. Those guys are really hard to get. They're really hard to find. They usually end up at Bama, or it's like the guy Texas had this year was like 370 pounds or whatever. That's kind of the guy that you need for that nose. And most teams can't find that guy. So it's really hard to play with a small nose guard, because if he's a little guy or a guy that can't hang in there, that defense is going to get absolutely crucified by a good interior running game. Because if a center can handle that nose, the thing's basically dead on arrival. But I like I said, that odd defense is tough. That's something Urban was always worried about, when we played odd defenses and getting those flush double teams and being able to move guys. So we always had, every play you have has an answer for odd. And if a team is an odd team, in terms, odd means 3-4. Like I'm not trying to say anything crazy, but even is like is a 4 down front, and odd is a 3 down front, like a 3-4 defense, like you guys traditionally think of. But the 4 down is way, way easier and frankly way more fun to block. Eric Bergdorf, thank you for the deuce. Thank you for, I think that's your 3rd one. Appreciate you, brother. Does Alfred's loss worry you of transfers? Not particularly. I mean, I think that transfers are going to happen. I mean, obviously, if we lose Dallin Hayden or James Peoples, like, does it suck? Yeah. But are we going to lose good players every year? So and I haven't heard anything about that. That's just me saying, if there's some sort of a whatever, like, I mean, it's Ohio State. If we can survive losing Woody Hayes and Urban Meyer and Jim Trussell, then we can survive losing any transfer. So I don't lose sleep on transfers. We lost our starting quarterback last year, who was third team All Big Ten, and I didn't lose a wink of sleep over losing Kyle McCord. So, but that's my opinion on it. Nevada, does Tony Alford's loss worry you about losing potential transfers in the running back room?
Yeah, not worried, but Peoples, I think, is in play. I think Peoples is absolutely a guy that you have to keep an eye on in this second portal window as a potential transfer. If we lost him, would it make me sad? Yeah. Is it catastrophic? No. Will we survive? Sure. Um, so I like James Peoples a lot. I think he's going to be a terrific running back, um, and I hope we keep him. But he'd be the one guy that I'd be keeping an eye on because I think he's the one who had the best relationship with Alford, and we'll see if he makes a move or not.
Well, and I think again, James has literally been on our show. I mean, I had an episode, so if you guys want to watch it, go to Buckeyes or go to YouTube, Buckeye Scoop, James Peoples, and it pops right up. But he's a phenomenal kid, great kid. It would suck to lose him, but again, I never fault a kid if he doesn't like the new coach. And again, that was like something like with Caleb Downs was like, well, and I've said this 100 times. So you guys that watch the show every day, did Caleb Downs want to put the future of his livelihood in the position of Washington's defensive coaches and Kane Womack, who was the head coach at like South Alabama, after watching Michigan run for 300 yards and watching their safeties get put on islands over and over again and look terrible? He said, "Nope, I'm going to Ohio State, baby. I'm going to go be a part of a top program with a lot of stability throughout their coaching staff," and kind of is what it is. But again, I think that's why it's imperative that Ryan Day has Chip Kelly coach the running backs, and then Chip can put his arm around the kid and say, "Look, you're going to be an NFL player. Do what I tell you to do. Just literally let me coach you. I mean, you've got a bright future. This is where you want to be at. I signed a 3-year contract. That's you only need 3 years here, and you can declare for the draft and you'll be a first round pick." So he's got that kind of ability. Like, I love that kid. It would suck if he left, but guys, like I said, we've lost Woody Hayes, Urban Meyer, Jim Trussell, Troy Smith. There's always another one coming down the pike. And the way that we're recruiting right now, I don't sweat it at all. So, but Nevada, great show tonight. Really, really great questions. Appreciate you guys as always. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap this thing up on a wonderful Sunday night?
Closing in on 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're a Twitter watcher and you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, or you're watching this and you haven't hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. We're less than 100 people away. An amazing accomplishment. The 30,000 subscriber show will be a big, big show. We're not sure exactly what we're going to do, but it's going to be zany. It's going to be memorable. So 30,000 subscribers. Will you be the 30,000 subscriber? Tell your friends, recommend it. And if you want to help us out, hit that like button. Hit that like button, hit that little thumbs up, because it helps other people find the show. It helps other people have it recommended to on their feed. So if you really want to help us out, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have subscribed, hit that like. And just thank you so much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys, as always, for kicking with us. Again, our merchandise drop is also going through Friday. Repthescoop.com, REPTHE Scoop, SCOOP.com. You can find it there. It's on BuckeyeScoop.com. I would love for you guys to buy some gear. The link is also in our episode information on YouTube. If you guys click on this episode, you'll see right at the top is the link directly to our store. So we appreciate you guys. There are some outstanding gear, really nice Nike hoodie, really nice Nike shirt, some really good stuff. So appreciate you guys so much. Eric Bergdorf, love you too, brother. Thank you for the 10. You're the best. Love you, brother. Appreciate you, as always, kicking it each and every night. I see a lot of you guys in here every night. I see you, Sean Rollins, you Drink It, Coconut Dreams, Bullet Train, 79, Steely Matt, Jeremy Moreland, Ted Nahas. I appreciate all you guys kicking it. Doreen is usually in here. Obviously, our moderators, my wife, Kim, Tora, a.k.a. Akeem, Devin, a.k.a. Ohio 7715. Appreciate you guys keeping it nice and clean for us. As always, appreciate you guys for all you guys do. We're about like 90 subs away from 30,000, which is unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. Again, clicking like on this video is humongous for us. It grows the channel exponentially. Additionally, if you have not subscribed, click that subscribe button and you get a hot, fresh episode of Buckeye Scoop every single day. We go every single night, and we appreciate you guys kicking it with us each and every night. And additionally, if you guys love these live shows, click that little alert bell. You get an alert on your phone, on your iPad, on your TV, whatever device you like to watch from your computer, that we are going live, so you never miss a minute of the live action. So thank you guys all for that. Shout out where you guys are watching from. My North Carolina boys, my Southern Ohio boys, and prayers to all the people that were affected by these tornadoes. Again, the aftermath is horrific. We're thinking about you guys, especially our Southern Ohio boys that we shout out. Indian Lake, it was horrific seeing the videos. So we're thinking about you. And again, we're just praying for you guys. We're thinking, again, you guys, a lot of our people are from all over the state of Ohio. So if you're affected, again, we're thinking of you. As always, shout out who you guys are watching with. I love seeing the families watching this together. It's great. Again, thank you to those who saw me eating dinner tonight and came up and said hello. That was awesome. So I appreciate that. Again, thank you guys for everything. And put on your calendar, April 13th, 9 a.m., Buffalo Wild Wings, Lane and High Street. We will be there in full force. I think we're going to have a huge turnout. I think it's going to be awesome. So I'd love to have you guys. Love to see you guys. Love to meet you guys, put names to faces. You guys can interact together. I think it'll be absolutely amazing. And I'm excited about it. So thank you guys all for kicking it with us. And I'm excited to meet a lot of you guys. With that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. See you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. We'll be ready to rock. Hope you guys have a great night. Go Bucks.